Seasonal affective disorder made my life miserable for months at a time for most of my life. I did some research and found there are easy, effective ways to mitigate SAD. With COVID compounding everyone's mental health challenges and the dark days of winter upon us, this is a good time to ask, am I happy? Let's continue this ride and discuss the matter. I'll start by saying if you're having real mental health issues, seek professional help. And if things have progressed to the point where suicide has entered your thinking, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or text HOME to the crisis text line at 741-741. I'll leave this information at the bottom of the screen. Note that the number for the lifeline will be changing in 2022. It will become the 3-digit 988. That number is not yet in service as of the posting of this video. Also note that while reviews of the crisis text line are generally favorable, there are detractors. It appears to me that postmodernists are taking over the crisis text line service, and that can't be a good thing. Also note that I am not a healthcare professional. As with everything else I put on YouTube, I make no claims at being an expert on anything except being me. To borrow a phrase from AA, I'm sharing my experience, strength, and hope with others. Seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, is most commonly associated with the winter months, although a summer version of SAD also exists. Some symptoms of winter SAD include feeling depressed, hopeless, worthless, or guilty, appetite changes, especially a craving for carbohydrates, tiredness, low energy, or a loss of interest in activities you once enjoyed, change in sleep habits and oversleeping, difficulty concentrating, and having frequent thoughts of death or suicide. Winter SAD was a problem for me for as long as I could remember. It peaked in the early 2000s and got bad enough that family members were seriously concerned for me. I was seriously concerned too, so I did some research. I wasn't interested in the causes of SAD. I wasn't a clinician or a research scientist. I was a self-diagnosed patient suffering with extended periods of SAD. I didn't care why I got bad. I just wanted to know how to get better. I learned a lot and applied what I learned and can honestly say I now have had zero issues with SAD for more than a decade. That's true even today, while COVID seems to be disrupting everyone's mental health. Here's a list of things that have been found to help treat SAD. Phototherapy, also called light therapy. Exercise, which can be accomplished by walking at least 10,000 steps per day. A quality diet that is high in fruits and vegetables and low in carbs. Exposure to sunlight, especially early in the day. There are devices called dawn simulators to help with this. They gradually increase the light in the room where you're sleeping to provide a more natural wake-up sequence. Getting adequate vitamin D, preferably through sunlight and diet, through supplements if necessary. Good sleep hygiene, which is a complex subject in itself. I'm historically a horrible sleeper at home and a sound sleeper when traveling. I've recently made changes to my sleep environment at home, and that seems to be paying off. It's too early to say for sure. I'll update y'all later. Aromatherapy reportedly works well, depending on the fragrances used. One site suggested maintaining a gratitude journal, writing down things every day for which you're grateful. Socialize more. Spending time with others can help shift your focus away from yourself. This is not an all-inclusive list, but does cover the most common treatments. Not all treatments are equally effective for all patients. That said, here's what I did that worked for me. I became attentive to lighting. I have a full-spectrum floor lamp on the end of the couch where I do most of my daily Bible study and other reading. I have a full-spectrum desk lamp on the desk I use most often. I also seek out sunlight. That's hard to do in winter in the Ohio River Valley with our endless days of gloom, but I figure if I'm outside at all, I'm getting more sun than if I didn't get out. I've read that it's best to get out early in the day because winter sunlight is stronger then, but I just make a point of getting out sometime before dark. I've also become more diet conscious. My wife and I are pescatarians, which means we eat a primarily vegetarian diet but do include fish. So the fruits and veggies part of diet discipline was already in place for me. According to the SAD guidelines, what I need to watch are carbs. I enjoy carbohydrate-rich foods such as bread and pasta, but there's tons of carbs in other foods too. And just watching carbs wasn't enough for me. Not all carbs are created equal. Some years ago I started paying attention to glycemic load. Here's a crash course on glycemic load. We start with the glycemic index, which is a measure of how foods affect blood sugar levels. Glycemic load uses the glycemic index, but also adjusts for the amount of carbohydrate in a typical serving size. This is important because serving sizes vary considerably. It's glycemic load more than glycemic index, and certainly more than carbohydrate amounts, that affect health. There are links to more info in the description. I'll cover all this more thoroughly in a future video. For now, just be aware that if controlling grams of carbohydrate is an essential part of your diet regimen, you likely won't get the results you seek, whether that's for controlling seasonal affective disorder, or for weight loss, or for anything else. My final step was to ensure I got regular outdoor exercise. This checked two boxes for me by keeping me active and by exposing me to whatever weak sunlight exists on our winter days. I'd like to get outside every day, but I set 3 days a week as my minimum. It doesn't have to be rigorous exercise. A walk downtown or an easy hike on local trails is sufficient. I do mix in more strenuous effort at times just because that's what the task or trail demands. I also recommend maintaining a positive outlook. Your world is constructed by your thinking. If you think your world stinks, it does. Keeping a sunnier outlook was not a change for me. The program by which I got sober emphasized the importance of maintaining an attitude of gratitude, so I've been doing that for more than 40 years. I also had decades in sales, followed by decades of writing deliverables that included marketing materials. My attitude of gratitude was not, by itself, sufficient to ward off SAD. But when I incorporated the other techniques I've mentioned and coupled those with a deliberate effort to further strengthen my attitude of gratitude, things all fell into place. My growth as a Christian played a key role as well. For my Patreon supporters at the behind the scenes level, I share some of the difficult decisions I made in creating this video. I had to decide how much personal information to share and assess the risks of doing so. That link is in the description. So that's it. I no longer struggle with SAD as long as I consistently employ these tactics. This is true even this year in the midst of concerns over COVID. Is SAD an issue for you? Is it worse this year because of COVID? If so, try these techniques or develop your own strategy based on what you've learned here. You may need assistance beyond what these steps can provide, and there's no shame in that. But start with a self-help program and see where it goes. Perhaps you'll find, as I did, there's just no reason to put up with feeling down. I'm Rich Reese, and I'll see you out there.